Hey, welcome back to the shop, guys. So, continuing work on the Matchless, trying to get this transmission put back together. If you recall, I bought a couple of different inner gaskets and none of them fit. And I told you I was probably going to have to resort to making my own, which as you can see here, I did. I made my own. It fits really well. It should work just fine. So what I did was I took measurements of the thickness of the gaskets that I bought, and they were 1/64th of an inch. So I ordered some 1/64th gasket sheets. So the way I did this was, it wasn't as easy as just being able to trace because there's protrusions here. Like this sticks up higher than the gasket surface, so you couldn't just lay it over. So I did it in steps. Started out with was I made a paper template out of just heavier notebook paper just to get started, because while this stuff's not expensive, you don't want to just waste it. So I started out with one of these, and one of the easiest ways to do it is there's many ways. So I figured out if I laid if I laid it this way, but I figured if I start cutting this part out, the raised part, then I can fit the gasket material over and I can make this part. So one of the ways you can do this is if you lay it on there, you can actually just run your finger. I'm using the scrap to show you. Run your finger really hard and press along the ridge like so. And then you're left, I don't know if that shows up on camera or not, but you're left with a nice perfect indent. That then what I would do is I took a fine Sharpie and I would trace that out, and then I cut it out. And I did that all the way around. Then I had a nice hole in the middle of my gasket paper. I could sit that down over, and then I did the same thing. A combination of pressing and where I could, tracing. So I would trace along where I could. Where I couldn't get a pen into, I would do the press down part. Okay, and then I would do the same thing for the inside. You can feel the inside lip. Here, I just kind of freehanded some of this through here, and then you can do the same thing when you get to the holes. When you're done cutting it all out and you're ready for the holes, you can do the same thing. Just press down on the holes. Of course, I picked the wrong part to do it in. Press down on the holes, and you can get a nice depression of the holes. Okay, in case you can't get a pen all the way through or something like that. And then since these were just small screws, I was able to just use a regular handheld punch, and I was able to just punch out the holes for where the bolts would go. Okay, so really not that difficult to do. It takes time, it's time consuming to get it right, but then when I was done, I actually have a gasket that actually fits. This hole is a little bit bigger because there's a locating dowel that goes through there. So I just used my hole punch and punched out. It's not perfect, but it's also, there's plenty of meat around there to seal up. It's not a big deal. And I'm going to slather a thin amount of this on both sides of the gasket. I like this. Everybody has their own favorite. I like Yamabond. I've used other stuff. There's plenty of stuff that works. This happens to be what I have on hand right now. So I'm going to coat both sides of this up with my fingers. I'm going to install this on the actual transmission, and then I'll put this up to it. Okay, and then we'll put some holes back in it, or put some screws back in it. If you remember, we cleaned up the screws, the screw holes. I'm going to Loctite the 3 screws that hold this on because I don't want it coming apart. And we can finally get to assembling this transmission. All right, so let me coat both sides of that, and when I'm ready to put this back together, I'll bring you guys back. All right, so I got my gasket in there. Now I'm going to see if I can do this without getting too much in the way of the camera. this cover to go over top of all this stuff. And I know I had a little bit of trouble getting the bearing to come over top of that one shaft. There it goes. Perfect. Okay. All right, now that's how that goes on. Let me grab some Loctite. Always make sure you shake your Loctite. And you don't need much. A lot of people tend to put way too much on. Same way with that sealant. Don't go overboard with the amount of sealant you stick on. All right, we're just gonna put a little dab on my degreased bolts here. After I remember to open that. Oops, a little too much. And since all three of these screws were the same size, same lengths, where they go doesn't really matter all that much. Grab a screwdriver here. Get these to start going in. Need a bigger screwdriver. For right now, we can get them started. There we go. Bigger screwdriver. Let's see if this one's any better. Yeah. All right, we want these to be good and tight. So now the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to get these good and tight. Now I'm going to get, I should have been more prepared. I don't want these to come, if you remember, I explained to you guys these things were actually loose. So I'm going to use a little bit of a wrench here and help me get these a little bit tighter. Just be careful you don't strip your aluminum cases or you'll really be sorry. That's why I don't, you'll see some guys like to tighten them with impact screwdrivers, you know, where you hit it with a hammer. I don't like doing that because you can't really tell how tight you're making it. Okay, so there, inner cover is now on. It's got gasket sealant, it's sealed. Bolts are Loctited in, so hopefully they don't come loose again. That's that locating dowel. So my Loctite, and there we go. Now, I won't put any oil in this, so I still got to assemble this and put the outer cover on, but I got to clean that all up yet. I have a gasket for the outer cover, so let me clean up some of these parts and get you guys resituated, and we'll start putting the innards here back together. Okay, because then what I like to do is I want to let that sealant sit overnight, at least 24 hours. It's only 50 degrees here in the shop, and I may not get back down here for a day or two, so I want that to sit all up before I put any oil in it. And then even before we do that, I'm going to put the outer cover back on without a gasket or anything, because I want to make sure when I put this back together, I have the gearbox indexed properly, that I have all 4 gears. Because last thing you want to do is take it back off and rip your new gasket apart. So we'll put it back together kind of dry first. We'll jack the rear end up, make sure I have all my gears, then we can take it off, put the gasket, seal that all up, and then we can put fluid in. But let me get ready here, and we're going to reposition you guys, and we'll start assembling this. All right, guys, I'm back. So we're going to start to assemble some of the innards here, which you guys didn't get to see me take out, but take out is not much different than reassembly. So first thing we're going to do is assemble, this is your kickstart ratchet mechanism. So you got your spring, your gear, so put that on first. Okay, get that over there. Then we have our other piece of our ratchety thing, of our ratchet assembly. Get that on there. And then we got our nut. Put our nut on. All right, so you can see the gear ratchets only one way, so that's good. Ratchet, no ratchet, ratchet, no ratchet. All right, so that's good. So I'm just going to hit this quick with the zipper gun. All right, that should be on there nice and tight now and not coming off. Still ratchets, still ratchets. All right, so we're good there. Just gonna hit it one more time quick. All right, that ain't coming off. So now next thing, so the way this works is, so we're taking pictures as you before you disassemble stuff is very handy. So next you have to install our shift drum. So you see these 2 rods, these things actually move in and out. Okay, there's a channel here, and you can see it, it's all crazy shaped. Okay, so there's a hole in both of these, and what happens is when we get this put together, there's a pin, this pin will go through there and gets cotter pinned in, and that rides in here. So as this turns, it pulls these rods in and out. You can see that. So here it'll pull the top one out, then it'll push it in, right? Then it'll pull it out. Okay, so as this rotates, it pulls these shift rods in and out, which is changing your gears inside the transmission. Okay, so I took a picture when I took it apart. You can see there's these 3 knobs, 3 nubbins, and so the 3rd nubbin was directly in line with this, and that was neutral. All right. So when I put this back together, okay, I'm going to want to turn this till it's pretty much right where I had it in my pictures. And then that way I can pull the rods out and put my pins in, and then it should be exactly where it needs to be. The other thing that looks like it's going to be a lot of fun is there's another smaller hole here which matches this that you have to get lined up so that you can get a split pin through to hold this in place so it doesn't fall out. Okay? But before we put this in, the back side you have these. So we have to get our detent. You don't want to forget your detent spring and detent itself. So we'll put that in there. Okay. Put this in. Everything is well oiled. I did that off camera. So I oiled everything up so that there was no dry startup per se. So now if I have this in the right place, yeah, see, that's in a detent. Okay. So then when you shift, it'll pop out of that detent. So that's perfect. All right. Because those detents on the back correspond to your gears. So now I'm going to try, I don't know how this is going to work here. This looks like a, so now we're going to pull this rod out. So this, hopefully, will fit down inside. There it goes. Try to get that hole lined up. If I get this all right, I was afraid that I should have checked that first. I might want to put that in from the bottom. It doesn't want to go all the way down. Yeah, goes in from the bottom easier. All right, see if I can get this hole semi lined up. Okay, we'll get that one. Oh, actually, hang on, I'm screwing up here. That was actually the bottom pin. Probably doesn't matter, but for the sake of consistency, put everything back where it goes. All right, now, see if we can get this in here where we wanted it. All right, wrong detent, correct detent. So now, there we go. So that holds that. And then we gotta pull the bottom rod out and get that to sort of go there. Now, the real fun part is going to be trying to get these split pins in, I think. We use these old ones to see if I can get it lined up. And then I'll put some new ones in there. Aha. Started to go through anyway. All right, got it started. And that one actually went all the way through. All right, so I'm going to replace these I'm going to replace these split pins with some new ones. I'm sure I have some of the right size somewhere. So that's essentially now fully installed. Okay, And when we put the outer cover on, this area here, okay, this shaft here will ride inside of this, inside of that bushing there, okay? And as you see, it's a through bushing. It goes all the way out to the outside, and that's because on that, then you also have your gear change indicator disc that tells you what gear you're in. It says 4, 3, and so on. I have a new one of those. We'll see which one I like better. But that's essentially it. That's the assembly, okay? Like I said, this transmission, everything worked. It shifted gears nicely, the kickstart worked nicely, everything worked. It just leaked really bad, which it leaked from both the inner gasket and this outer gasket. So I'm gonna clean up this outer area. I'm not disassembling any of this. I'm not gonna take any of this stuff apart because it all worked good. I'm just gonna clean this all out, clean up the outer case a little bit, and then these are all the parts to put this back together. But for now, that's good enough. I got the inside all back, the inner stuff all put back together. I'm just gonna go hunt down some new split pins, put them in and bend them over, and we'll be all good to go. So there you go. We're part way there. When it's time to put the outer in, I will show you guys that. I'll show you me lifting it up, and we will make sure that all the gears actually work, even though it should now be indexed correctly. All right, I will see you guys soon. Until next time, get in the garage and work on something. Hey guys, welcome back. All right, so where we left off, I was gonna clean up this outer cover, which I did. I cleaned up the inside of it. I temporarily just put this on. I put one screw here, one screw there, just to hold this cover on. Because like I said before, I wanna make sure that it's indexed properly and I can get all my gears before I go ahead and finalize this, okay, by putting a gasket and sealant and everything on it. So, like, I did not put the clutch ball in because I don't want to take a chance of dropping it, taking it on and off if I have to take it off more than once. You can see here I jacked up the rear wheel so I can spin the rear wheel. Okay, sometimes you gotta move the wheel to get it to want to shift gears. Okay, this bike being British, obviously it shifts on the wrong side, but in addition, it has it's like a Norton, it's like most Nortons. It has an opposite pattern. So I'm obviously in neutral because I can spin the wheel, which is where I made it be. So it seems like that part worked. Okay. So the next step is you would go up for first. Okay. I can't move the wheel. So that's good. So first is good. Back to neutral. Down to second. I got second. Down to third. I got third. And down to fourth. I got fourth, and if I try hard, I can spin the engine, so I know I'm in fourth gear, okay? We'll come back up to third, come back up to second, come back up to neutral, and first. Perfect. All right, so everything is working. So I'll take these two screws out, pop this cover back off, and we can put the gasket in and get this side all sealed up. So I'll bring you back after I get this back off, and we'll go from there. All right, here we go, guys. We're gonna put this outer cover back on. What I did this time was I put sealant on the transmission, put the gasket up to it, and then I put sealant on my outer cover, and now I'm going to mate the two together so as I don't lose my Kickstarter. I tie wrapped it kind of to the shifter because you don't want it to unwind the spring on you. And the one thing you got to make sure you remember to do is put your little ball bearing back in its cup. All right, put some grease on there so it stays in. And because you want, if that ball bearing is not there, your shifter is not going to work. Man, it couldn't have went any better if I tried. Went right on there. That's perfect. I'll worry about the seal later. Just trying to get back on her so I don't lose it. All right, there we go. All right, now let's see if we can get some screws started. These I don't care about putting Loctite on so much because they're easy to get to because they're on the outside. So getting Loctite on them is not that critical. And if they become a problem, I can always just do that later. All right, I'm just going to start them quickly. Because these two long ones that I'm putting in now, they actually do go through both the outer and inner case into the transmission. So I want to get them in there so that they can help that inner cover we already put on seal up. So we're going to get this stuff started. Okay, it's important. These bolts are all different sizes, so I laid them out when I took this apart the way they go. So that I wouldn't have to worry about figuring that out later. It's always good to do that because when you're taking it apart, you never really know if they're all the same size or not. And then it's too late. So always lay them out, make cardboard. Sometimes I make cardboard things to put them in with holes so that I can, with an outline of the part, so I know exactly where they went. And the last one. Now we can go around and tighten these all up. This gasket actually did fit like it's supposed to, so I was able to use it and not have to make my own. Nice and tight. Nice torque on those there. I said if these do start to loosen up on me after I start riding, these are not a big deal. Just pull one screw out at a time and put some Loctite on it if I choose to later. All right, there we go. They're all in. All right, we saw that the shifter worked. Just check that the Kickstarter works. Yep. All right, Kickstarter is working. I'm in neutral, in first, back to neutral, down to second, down to third, and down to fourth. Up to third, up to second, up to first. Neutral. All right. Then all we got to do, this is our indicator gear shift indicator. We'll put that on. I have a new one. The new one didn't really look that good to me, so I may not even use that one. I may just clean this old one up and use it. But that goes on like that. Position it so that this here is your pointer. Since I'm in neutral, that's the neutral slot, dash line, I guess I would call it. See if I can get this on there. And no, I can't. There we go. So this isn't staying on permanently, so I guess I seal the seat in there better. But just to give you an idea what it's going to look like. So that'll be like that. And then as you shift, this rotates. So now the 1 is there. Now the 2 is there. Of course, now I'm skipping neutral every time. There we go, neutral's there, it says. So, there we go. I'm gonna let this sit up, like I said, at least overnight, if not longer, depending on when I get back down here, before I fill it back up with oil. And then hopefully, with any luck, nothing will leak. In the meantime, since I have the rear wheel off the ground, I actually want to pull the rear wheel because the rear brakes are very ineffective. They don't really do much of anything. So I'll pull that out, see how worn out the pads are, see if I need to stick some shims in there. It actually calls for that in the manual. You can put shims in them, and I'll show you that when we get it apart. But for now, I'm just going to let this stuff all set up overnight at least. Put our little fill cap on there. Eventually we have to get our clutch cable put back in, but we can do all that with the cover on. It'll feed down into the fork here. Not a big deal. So this is what we are. This is where we are. Transmission is now back together, and with any luck, it'll be leak free. So until next time, get out in the garage and work on something. Thanks for watching.